Hello, 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 and welcome to my live call. My name is Chad Allen, and I help professionals and their families live a healthier life so that they can spend more time with their families and not miss those very, 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 very special moments. So I want to start off with telling you a little bit of a story about myself, and and then we'll go from there and we'll get with the topic. So this all leads into what I'm about to share with you about gratitude. When I was young, I was always feeling like I was being picked on a lot. I was always getting angry. I had a lot of anger issues within me. And I remember always getting into fights with my brothers and sisters. I'm sure all of you can relate to that. And when I was in high school, I really thought that my family was the worst. I really thought that the school I went to wasn't really that good because some of the people in that school were not very nice, and I just wanted to get out of there. I just wanted to leave and not ever experience high school ever again. And I never went to college, because I always had this notion of college was really uh, was overrated, that kind of thing. And so as I as I really delved in to myself, and I began to realize how negative I really was as a person, and it brought to me the reasons why I needed to change. One of the epiphanies that I had when I was younger was when I was flying airplanes, and I was learning how to fly a single engine airplane, and on and it was like a series of things that began to happen. And because I was always negative, I was always like, nothing will ever happen. This it always happens to me. It's always this way. It's always that way. And so the very first time I ever flew, I with my instructor, we end up getting a storm ended up coming in, and we ended up getting stuck in the clouds, and we had to do what they call a instrument landing approach. So we did that, and we landed. The second time, I had an engine out on the runway. The third time, I was on my own on a solo flight, and this is where my personal epiphany happened, where I knew I needed to change the way I think. And and when I was flying, I was doing the touch and goes. So if you know, and then like about when you learn how to fly, you do touch and goes on your first solo flight. And I remember on the third takeoff and the third landing, I was coming in, uh, and I went into the base approach. Base is when you're like this before you go into the final and you land. So I remember going into the base approach, and the whole time that you're up there, I had no radio communication. I couldn't communicate with anybody. Like I could talk to ground and to the tower when I was on the when the plane was on the tarmac, and I was on the runway, and I was getting ready to take off. But once I got into the air, uh, that radio was no longer there, and it was so. For me at the time, I thought, "Oh my goodness, this is so weird," you know. So I took the extra precautions to really look deep into the horizon, because of course, I don't want a plane to hit another plane, right? And so going to the base approach, and there's no plane in the distance. And then I looked again just to make sure, and I didn't see no plane whatsoever in the distance. And I turned it to the final approach, and during my final approach, as I was about to, as I was coming in for the landing, a twin engine airplane comes about 50 yards underneath me. Now you can imagine the fear and the absolute like holy, you know what, right? And like I just remember looking down. I could see the rivets of the plane. I could see the antenna of the plane. Just it was like it was quite amazing. And so from that point, what I had to do was I hovered as much as I could because I was hoping to land because I was really my heart was pounding so bad. And all I could think of was like, God, thank you for not allowing me to have this midair collision in the air. It's like, but I was and I kept trying to land, but the that plane that was in front of me kept holding on, kept holding on, kept holding on. It would not get off the runway. So I was forced to put the flaps up and put it back in fourth throttle, and then I came back around and I landed the aircraft, and I could just remember, thinking into my mind, it's like, God is real, and I really need to be grateful for everything that God has given me, everything. I had 4 surgeries or 3 surgeries on my ears before that, and all I could think of was like, yes, I've had ear problems. Yes, I had, family problems. I really was upset with my family. Yes, I almost had a mid-air collision, but thank God that He spared me and made me whole because He was not done with me yet. And it was at that point where I began to realize that everything that I ever thought about, done, was something that was planned in my life, and I needed to be grateful, thankful for what He has given me. And whenever we, you see, whenever we look at the world and we see all the negative in our life, the negative on TV, the news media, the people around us. Seems to be a lot of ungratefulness, a lot of anger that is taking place, and these are people who have allowed themselves to be taken by the moment that is there, and they've learned by conditioning to be negative their whole life, to be ungrateful. But the great news is that being negative and being ungrateful are only conditions that can be changed for the better to make you grateful, to be more grateful. And when you start being grateful and you start getting rid of that negative and that ungratefulness that you have in your heart, and you begin to replace it with grateful thoughts and positive thoughts, you'll really begin to see things change for the better in your life. And I can safely say that that has happened to me. Did it happen overnight? Of course not. It's taken many years for me to really begin to see my full potential in life. You know, a couple years ago, I could never do Facebook Lives ever because I was so afraid to do Facebook Lives. You know, te- uh, before I was married, my confidence wasn't that great, but God allowed me to graduate nursing school, so I became a registered nurse, and my confidence soared because I finally accomplished something that I've never accomplished before. I was able to finish, and I learned to be grateful instead of looking at the oh my goodness, so much homework, and you're being so ungrateful for the homework. I looked at it as, wow, I am learning knowledge, positive knowledge, in order to help my fellow man in times of crisis. And I really wanted to help people out, people in every aspect, and I especially wanted to help people in the in the psychiatric area because I knew that the mind is a very powerful tool that if we condition ourselves in the right way, then we can really understand and really begin to create the kind of life that we are really wanting. So part of that of creating a life that you really want is being of a grateful heart. And you have to have a grateful mind, a grateful heart, and you got to be willing to get rid of those negative thoughts that are there, that ungratefulness. I'm reminded also of a relative of mine who won $1,000. He won he won $1,000 in the lottery. Well, one day he took that lottery ticket to the lottery state office where he was going to claim his $1,000. But because he owed taxes on that money, the state said, "Well, we are going to take this the majority of this money and pay it towards your taxes." So the relative came back and was extremely upset, extremely angry. Wanted to go after the world because the state took the $1,000 that he won and he could not claim it for himself because the state said he had to pay the taxes. So I told my relative that, you know, I know it's upsetting to you that you did not get the $1,000 winnings, and that is completely understandable to be upset. But be grateful that you were able to pay off the majority of your taxes to the state. You won $1,000. The state paid over $800 of your taxes, so therefore that is $800 less that you have to pay for your back taxes, and the state paid for it. The state paid for it. I mean, how cool is that? You win $1,000, and then the state pays for your taxes. With that is awesome. That is great. So whether or not that relative was grateful after that, I don't really know. But the power of being grateful versus the power of being ungrateful really shows in how you respond to certain situations in your life. So if you're always saying that this always happens to me all the time, I really hate this person. I really don't like this person. Or I really don't like this situation that I am in. And it always happens to me. Then you are attracting those things to yourself. But if you're grateful and you look at the positive in your life, then those positive things you are attracting to yourself, and then you begin to see a different uh, response that you're having, and you're no longer angry with the world that is there. So, three things that I want to share with you that you can do to help you turn your ungratefulness, your unthankful heart, because maybe you're always negative, into a grateful heart. Where you're always showing gratefulness for the things that you have. Because I'm telling you, I used to be that way. I used to be very ungrateful, and I really would love for you to be a person who sees things in a very positive light and says, I am thankful that this happened. I may not like what happened because it really stinks, that kind of thing. But if this didn't happen, then this would not have happened, or I would not have been able to pay my taxes. I would not have been able to do this, or I would not have been humbled to understand certain things. So it's really for my good that I did not get that job, because it was something that really would have been a negative on my family. So number one, if you're feeling ungrateful and negative, you should take a moment to step away and really think of a positive in that situation. Because when you do that, if you step away, then you won't allow your mind to immediately go to that negative thought that you're having. Instead, you are allowing your mind to process and see something that is positive. Once you have something that's positive within your mind, then you should acknowledge that you're angry and that you're feeling ungrateful, because it's a real feeling. So acknowledge it, that's how you're feeling, because that is how you're feeling. But then you need to state something like, "But I am grateful for this." So you're acknowledging your anger, you're acknowledging your ungratefulness, for being not thankful or negative, whatever, and then you're turning it into a positive in that way. And then you should repeat that to yourself as much as you need to, until you're finally over the negative or ungrateful thing that you're having. Does it happen overnight? Of course not, because when I was it took me maybe a good month or two, and in other cases it took me quite a while before I really began to replace, like, all of the negativeness in my life uh, with something else. Now, there are times though, like when I would like watch the news and I would feel myself getting more negative. So when I feel that beginning to happen, the first thing I do is like, okay, I have to stop watching the news, and I turn everything off, like all the news off. And I did that actually a few weeks ago, because I know that if I continue on, I would just get more and more angry. So I had to stop and began to focus on things that were productive in my life. Because being angry and being ungrateful and always getting angry at something that you have no control over in your life, it's not doing anything for you. You cannot control the world events around you. Can you go vote? Of course you can go vote. But when it comes down to the things that are happening in this world, you as an individual have no control over what is being said, what is being done, what is being uh, uh, shared on news and stuff like that. You have no control over that. But you do have control over yourself. You have control over the situations that you put yourself into. You have control over how you feel about certain things and how you react to certain things. So you have to remember that this is very key to your overall health, because it's very, very important for you to really have that understanding. And I want you to feel that. I want you to feel uh, that everything that has happened is that it's like, God, thank you for this moment. Thank you for this, and really begin to see things in a more positive light. So I want to thank you for being on my live call. You can check out my webpage at www.chadallen.net, chadallan.net and you get my freebie, chadallen.net/freebie, chadallan.net/freebie, FREEBIE. All right. Thank you so much for being on my call, and we will talk to you later on. Woohoo! All right, guys. Take care. Bye bye. God bless.